There's a sound I can't get out of my head, not a scream, not a shout, just a voice, quiet at first, then urgent, then desperate, repeating the same 3 words over and over until they fade into silence. 9 minutes and 29 seconds. That's how long a knee stayed pressed into a man's neck on a Minneapolis street corner while bystanders begged for it to stop. That's how long it took for a routine call about a counterfeit $20 bill to become a flashpoint that would shake the entire world. If true crime stories centered on Black experiences and African cases are your thing, you're in the right spot. I'm T, and I bring you new investigations every week. Before we start, please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss the next one. Let's get into it. On the morning of May 26, 2020, Minneapolis is quiet in a way it hasn't been in years. The corner of East 38th Street and Chicago Avenue is already covered in flowers and handwritten notes and people standing in silence, not quite knowing what to do with what they witnessed the night before. And across town, in a government building, someone is typing an official press release. The Minneapolis Police Department released its statement at 11:59 p.m. on the 25th, just before midnight, hours after the events. The title read, "Man dies after medical incident during police interaction." It said officers responded to a forgery call. It said the suspect, and that's what they called him, the suspect, physically resisted officers. It said officers were able to get the suspect into handcuffs and noticed he appeared to be suffering medical distress. It said they called an ambulance. It said he died at the hospital. According to their official record, a man had simply taken ill during a routine arrest. Tragic, maybe, but not a crime. And here, right here, is where this story becomes something more than the story most people think they already know. Because there's a question at the center of all of this that most retellings skip right past. How does a man die on a public sidewalk in front of dozens of witnesses, with multiple cameras rolling, with people screaming for someone to stop, and the official police version says almost nothing happened? That question has an answer, but to get there, you need to understand 3 people. A man who had been trying to rebuild his life for years, an officer with 17 years on the force, and a look on his face that a witness would later describe in a courtroom as cold. And a 17-year-old girl who walked to a corner store one evening to buy snacks and ended up holding more power in her hands than she could possibly have known. The man who had been trying to rebuild his life for years was George Perry Floyd Jr. George Perry Floyd Jr. was born on October 14, 1973 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. His mother, Larsania, everyone called her Sissy, moved the family to Houston when he was still a toddler. They settled in the Cuney Homes, a public housing complex in the city's 3rd Ward, a historically Black neighborhood shaped by decades of disinvestment, over-policing, and a community that held itself together anyway. Floyd grew up tall, 6'4" by the time he was done. He moved through the world with a gentleness that surprised people who only saw the size of him first. His neighbors called him Big Floyd. His childhood friends called him Perry. He played football and basketball at Jack Yates High School. In 1992, he was the tight end on the team that made it to the 5A Texas State Championship. He was good enough to earn a scholarship. He dreamed about it. But there was a 2nd grade essay, written when he was 8 years old, that told you everything about who George Floyd wanted to be. His teacher asked the class what they wanted to grow up to be. Floyd wrote, "When I grow up, I want to be a Supreme Court judge. When people say, 'Your Honor, he did rob the bank,' I will say, be seated. That was the 8-year-old. The teenager became a football star. The young man dropped out of college and came home to Houston, where he worked, rapped under the name Big Floyd with DJ Screw's legendary Screwed Up Click, and tried to figure out what came next. What came next was hard. Between 1997 and 2005, Floyd was convicted of 8 offenses. In 2007, he was convicted on a robbery charge and served 4 years in prison. He never hid from that. After his release, he showed up at community events in Houston, stood in front of young men in the neighborhood and told them directly, "These are choices I made and I wish I hadn't. You don't have to make them too." In 2014, Floyd made a decision that changed everything. His pastor connected him with a church work program that brought men from Houston's 3rd Ward to Minnesota, a place with more robust social services and more rehabilitation programs. Floyd took the chance. He packed up and moved north, looking for a reset. For a while, it seemed to be working. He completed a rehabilitation program at Turning Point, an organization in North Minneapolis. He got work as a security guard at a Salvation Army shelter. Later, he picked up a second job as a bouncer at the Conga Latin Bistro, a nightclub in South Minneapolis. His co-workers there remembered him as the man who cracked jokes to cut tension, who stayed after his shift to talk to people who seemed like they were having a hard night. Then, 2020 arrived. His roommate died of an overdose. His mother Cece had already died in 2018, a loss that sat in him like a stone. He was fighting opioid addiction, a battle he was honest about, a battle he hadn't yet won. And then the pandemic hit. Minnesota issued stay-at-home orders. The club closed. Floyd lost his job. By May 25, 2020, George Floyd was unemployed, struggling, and trying to hold on. That evening was Memorial Day. It was warm, the kind of early summer night that made Minneapolis feel possible again. He went out with 2 friends. They stopped at Cup Foods, a corner grocery at East 38th Street and Chicago Avenue. Floyd went inside. He bought a pack of cigarettes. He paid with a $20 bill. At 8:01 p.m., a Cup Foods employee called 911. A $20 bill appeared to be counterfeit. The caller said the customer seemed intoxicated and wasn't cooperating with the store's request to return the cigarettes. Dispatch logged the call, forgery in progress, and sent a patrol unit. A store employee calling about a $20 bill should be the lowest stakes possible call. The kind of thing that, in most cities, most nights, results in an officer having a 5-minute conversation and leaving. Officers Thomas Lane and J. Alexander Queng arrived first. Both were rookies, licensed as officers in August 2019 and were still in their first year. Body camera footage showed Lane approaching Floyd's parked SUV with his gun already drawn, pointed directly at the driver's window, before he'd exchanged a single word with the man inside. Inside that car, George Floyd saw a weapon aimed at his face. His hands came up slowly. He looked startled and confused, but not defiant. Lane ordered him to show his hands. Floyd complied. They cuffed him behind his back without resistance. Lane and Queng tried to guide Floyd into the back seat. Floyd resisted. Not violently, no striking, no running, but he would not get in. He was panicking. He told the officers he was claustrophobic. That enclosed spaces terrified him. That he had been shot before and that police encounters scared him. His voice cracked. He begged, "Please, man, please." He told them, "I'm not a bad guy." He was crying. The struggle was awkward and desperate, not dangerous, but sad. Floyd was a large man and the 2 rookies couldn't control the situation. He slid down toward the pavement. He ended up face down on the asphalt alongside the car, hands cuffed behind his back, cheek against the ground, still saying in a breaking voice, "Please." It was at that moment, 8:17 p.m., that a second squad car arrived. Officer Derek Chauvin and Officer Tuthau stepped out, and the situation changed entirely. Derek Chauvin had been a Minneapolis police officer for 17 years. He was 44 years old. Over his career, at least 18 complaints had been filed against him with the department's Internal Affairs Office. He had been formally disciplined twice. That evening, he was the senior officer on scene. He took one look at the situation, Floyd face down, cuffed, pleading with the rookies, and took control. Without warning, Chauvin placed his left knee on the back of George Floyd's neck and shifted his full body weight forward. Floyd's voice came immediately. "I can't breathe." He said it again and again, 16 times in total, according to the evidence presented at trial. But it didn't stop at "I can't breathe." As the seconds turned into minutes, Floyd's pleas became more specific, more desperate. "My stomach hurts, my neck hurts, everything hurts. I need some water or something, please." He told the officers directly. "They're going to kill me, man." He said, "Don't kill me." And still, Chauvin's knee did not move. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes, gradually became a total of 9 minutes and 29 seconds. That's not a split-second bad decision. That's the length of a song, long enough to make a cup of coffee, long enough to read a short article, long enough many times over to reconsider, to stand up, to choose something different. That time passed and the knee did not move. A crowd formed on the sidewalk. Phones came out. People began shouting. One of those people was a 17-year-old girl. She had been walking her 9-year-old cousin to cup foods for snacks when she saw what was happening. She sent her cousin inside the store. She didn't want her to see a man, in her own words, terrified, scared, begging for his life. Then she took out her phone and pressed record. Her name was Darnella Frazier. We'll talk more about her later. At around the 4-minute mark, an off-duty firefighter named Genevieve Hansen appeared at the edge of the crowd. She was trained as an EMT. She moved as close as she could and identified herself. She told the officers Floyd needed to be placed in the recovery position immediately. She begged them to check his pulse. Officer Total was the one who faced the crowd. When Hansen stepped forward and identified herself as a medical professional, Tao told her to get on the sidewalk. When the crowd got louder, Tao talked them down, and when people shouted that Floyd wasn't moving, Tao told them the situation was under control, and behind him Chauvin's knee did not move. By this time, Floyd's movements had slowed, his voice was barely audible, and then he said one word, "Mama." His mother, Sissy Floyd, had died 2 years earlier. He couldn't have known he was saying her name out loud, but he said it, and then he said it again. At 8:24 p.m., roughly 7 minutes in, Floyd appeared to stop moving. Officer Lane, one of the rookies, asked Chauvin, "Should we roll him on his side?" Chauvin said no. A bystander in the crowd shouted, "Does he have a pulse?" An officer checked. Couldn't find one. The knee still did not move. Another full minute passed. At 8:27 p.m., a Hennepin County ambulance arrived on the scene, summoned by the officers themselves. A paramedic checked Floyd's pulse while Chauvin's knee was still on his neck. Chauvin only removed his knee when the paramedic gestured for him to do so. Darnella Frazier's camera captured the paramedics loading Floyd onto a stretcher. His body was limp. His eyes were closed. Fire department medics met the ambulance at the corner of 36th Street and Park Avenue. They found Floyd unresponsive and without a pulse. At 9:25 p.m., 1 hour and 24 minutes after a Cup Foods employee picked up a phone to report a counterfeit $20 bill, doctors at Hennepin County Medical Center pronounced George Floyd dead. He was 46 years old. Now, let's go back to that question from the beginning. How does a man die in public, on camera, with dozens of witnesses, with people screaming for someone to stop, and the official police statement says almost nothing happened? This is how. The MPD statement went out hours after Floyd died. They called it a medical incident. The suspect had resisted. Officers had performed CPR. He'd been taken to hospital. The statement didn't lie about every detail, but it built a picture, carefully, deliberately, that placed no blame and raised no red flags. In a world without video, that statement might have held. It had held before, many times. The officer's account of events versus no account at all, or a community's account that never made it past the precinct door. But something was different this time. Darnella Frazier had pressed record, and the next day, the world saw what she saw. Darnella Frazier was born on March 23, 2003. She grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. Her lawyer described her before all of this as a normal teenager with a boyfriend and a job at the mall. On the evening of May 25, 2020, she walked her 9-year-old cousin to Cup Foods, a few storefronts down from where the police had pulled Floyd from his vehicle. She saw what was happening and sent her cousin inside. Then she pointed her phone at Derek Chauvin's knee and pressed record. For 10 minutes and 9 seconds, she did not look away. She filmed through the shouting and the begging. through Officer Thao spreading his arms to hold the crowd back, through Floyd going still, through the paramedics arriving. She kept her phone steady and she kept recording. That night she posted the video to Facebook. By the afternoon of May 26th, the video had been seen by millions of people around the world. And here is where everything changed. The official account said one thing, the 10-minute video said something else entirely, and the public had both in front of them at the same time. The official story didn't survive the afternoon. Within 24 hours of the video going public, all 4 officers were fired. 3 days later, Derek Chauvin was charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. Prosecutors reviewed every angle of footage, every body camera, every bystander video, Darnella's video, and upgraded the charge to second-degree unintentional murder. The 3 other officers faced charges of aiding and abetting. George's autopsy was ruled a homicide. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner, Dr. Andrew Baker, determined the cause of death was cardiopulmonary arrest, resulting from law enforcement subdual, restraint, and neck compression. He noted underlying heart disease and the presence of fentanyl as contributing factors. A second autopsy, commissioned by Floyd's family, named the cause as asphyxiation from sustained pressure. Both said the same word, homicide. Derek Chauvin's trial opened on March 29, 2021. The prosecution's approach was straightforward. They played the video, all of it, frame by frame. They asked medical experts what sustained compression does to the human body, specifically to the airway and blood flow. They asked Minneapolis police use of force trainers whether what Chauvin did fell within anything resembling department policy. The defense argued that Floyd's heart condition and the drugs in his system were the real cause of death, that the crowd had been hostile and a distraction, that Chauvin was doing his job. Prosecutors played the video again. Darnella Frazier was called to testify on the second day of the trial. She had just turned 18. Her face was not shown on the courtroom cameras. She had been a minor at the time of Floyd's death. Through audible tears, she described what she had seen that evening. She described Floyd. He was terrified. He was suffering. It was a cry for help. She described Chauvin. She said that as the crowd grew louder, as people begged him to stop, he pushed his knee harder into Floyd's neck. He actually was kneeling harder, she said. It looked like he was shoving his knee in his neck. At the end of her testimony, the prosecutor asked Darnella Frazier how filming George Floyd's death had changed her life. There was a long silence, and then she began to speak. When I look at George Floyd, I look at my dad, I look at my brothers, I look at my cousins, my uncles, because they are all black. I look at that and I look at how that could have been one of them. And then with tears running down her face, it's been nights I stayed up apologizing to George Floyd for not doing more and not physically interacting and not saving his life. She was 17 years old on the night George Floyd died. She was there to buy snacks. She had no training, no authority, no power, except for the phone in her hand and the decision to keep it pointed forward. Through her tears, she said one more thing. It's not what I should have done. It's what he should have done. She was talking about Chauvin. On April 20th, 2021, nearly 1 year after George Floyd's death, the jury convicted Derek Chauvin on all 3 counts: second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 22.5 years in state prison. In a separate federal civil rights case, he pleaded guilty and received 21 years to run concurrently. Officers Lane, Queng, and Thao were each convicted in federal and state proceedings on charges related to their roles that evening. All received prison sentences. The city of Minneapolis reached a wrongful death settlement with Floyd's family for $27 million. In June 2021, the Pulitzer Prize Board issued Darnella Frazier a special citation for, in their words, courageously documenting the murder of George Floyd. A video that spurred protests against police brutality around the world, highlighting the crucial role of citizens in the pursuit of truth and justice. The protests that followed George Floyd's death spread to every state in America and to countries across the world. The New York Times described them as among the largest in the United States since the civil rights era. Policy changed in cities from Minneapolis to Los Angeles to London. Bans on certain restraints, expanded body camera requirements, revised training protocols. The corner of East 38th Street and Chicago Avenue became George Floyd Square. It is still there. Flowers, murals, handwritten notes, and grief made permanent in concrete and paint. There's a sound that never quite leaves. I can't breathe. Not the first time he said it, not the last. But somewhere in the middle, when his voice was still strong enough to carry, still desperate enough to believe someone might listen. 9 minutes and 29 seconds, long enough to change a mind, long enough to stand up, long enough to check a pulse and choose differently. George Floyd called for help, but the knee never moved. If this story meant something, don't just scroll, like and subscribe so it reaches more people. Also, leave a comment below. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next one.